How is it that on day 19, a freshman has a bill in rules that went through Judy non-civil? Was Representative Setzler not there when the vote was taken? Is that what happened?
He actually assisted me in the subcommittee, and Chairman Golick also was a co-signer on the bill, and I appreciate their leadership in this.
Sounds like to me that one will never hit the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
To my friends on the wall, did you notice how short Mr. Tanner was? There's good things about that. Good doctor.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much, and I'll certainly be brief. I have two bills I had for your consideration today. House Bill 208 is the nursing home bill that we discussed last week. The nursing homes are asking for this legislation. This requires all the nursing homes in the state to give the flu vaccine to their employees. It is they would offer it to them free of charge. They would not be required to give it. Since being here, Section C, line 28, we would, on the floor, would offer that as an amendment to remove that. Discuss this with the majority whip, and we'll offer that on the floor to remove Section C.
Any questions? Mr. Lindsay. He waved. Okay. Next bill.
House Bill 209. This is a bill that was last year, got caught up at the last minute. It was carried by a pharmacist. This bill fixes the previous legislation that required security paper in the state of Georgia. This just allows security paper to be used by the CMS, the Medicaid, Medicare, from the federal government. This is a cleanup bill. It is signed by our chairman and all of the pharmacists in the House.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Battles.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee. I certainly will be short because this has been discussed enough, I'm sure. But this is House Bill 35, and actually we're going off a substitute LC 35-2890S. And of course this is the legislation to allow the carrying and possession of firearms by designated individuals within the school system as designated by their school boards.
The minority leader, Ms. Abrams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Battles, under HB 35, if a school system is self-insured and there is some violation, or if there is any criminal, or if there's any civil liability brought against the school system, is there any protection in this bill that would allow that school system to be able to meet their civil liability obligations?
Now, this is going to be the intent of this is to give the local school boards the full responsibility of their liability coverage. This does not give them anything other than if they accept this as a part of their safety program within the school, then they will have to accommodate themselves with the proper insurance to cover them.
Thank you.
Ms. Drenner.
Representative Battle, on line 20.
I'm sorry, I did not hear.
On line 20, section 2, it says one or more qualified persons to possess. Is there a definition somewhere else in the code that defines qualified person?
A qualified person? No. Again, this qualification comes by virtue of the specific policy that is provided in this legislation, and then ultimately that is going to be determined by that school board. Again, that is giving the school board the ultimate responsibility of determining the qualifications. Now, with that in mind, we have given specific things within this that they would be responsible to do certain things as firearm safety, authorizing them with training, background checks, psychological evaluations, and all those things that we feel that would be necessary and normal for anyone who is serving in a security or a peace officer's position.
Anything else? Since I don't know where you are.
I'm right here.
Okay. I thought you were right there, but you're not.
I am. I'm sorry. I was late. I take full responsibility for that. Mr. Battles, just a follow-up question, without being that familiar, of course, with this particular piece of legislation. Who exactly is in charge of these qualified people?
Who is in charge of the qualified people?
So the school board defines qualified. And who do these armed officers work for? The principal?
They do. They work for the school system, yes. Not for the principal. This would be a total determination by the school board itself, not by an administrator. This would be determined through an act of the school board. They, in turn, would find those qualified training groups that would satisfy the policy requirements that we have in this bill. And but it would not be left up to an individual school. It would be left up to the sole discretion of that school board. And I'm sorry.
You know, I live in DeKalb, right?
Yes. Well, you can move out to Bartow County, and you probably wouldn't have any questions like this.
Mr. Lindsay.
Just a couple of quick questions to the author. First off, it's my understanding that a large percentage of our local school districts already provide for armed guards in their schools. And it's also my understanding that under existing law, school boards are already authorized to allow teachers to carry guns at their discretion. Is that right?
That, based on the interpretation that I've got from Legislative Council, that is not true. Okay. They can. Let me give you the definition or the explanation that they gave me. If, let's say that you had someone that you wanted to come and speak in a classroom, and they're a World War II veteran, and they decided that they might bring with them maybe the rifle that they used, or maybe a bayonet or something that we consider as a weapon. They can come for a limited time for a limited purpose. If you look at that last part of that code section, it does give some discretion to that school to allow it, but it is for limited time, limited purposes. It is not continuous.
Basically, what this bill does is it provides safety measures should a local school district wish to allow people to carry weapons at school, requiring them to go through extra safety procedures to make sure they know how to use it and that the proper people that should be allowed to use it.
Yes, sir. This is totally voluntary. This is not demanded.
And as to the minority leader's point in regarding insurance, that's once again something for the discretion of that local school board to decide if they wish to allow these teachers to be armed after proper training. It would be up to the local school board to decide whether or not to provide for additional, or whether or not they needed additional insurance.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Battle.
Thank you.
Mr. Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I come to ask the committee's consideration for House Bill 254. The bill would allow the law enforcement officer at a traffic stop to accept an electronic copy of your automobile identification card, which will continue to be provided in a paper format. This would be optional to the consumer, the insurance company. it's taxpayer friendly. It comes at no cost or obligation to the state, but it will facilitate the sharing of policyholder information in the event that the paper copy cannot be found. And I would ask for the committee's favorable consideration of this bill.
Mr. Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Williams, I like your bill, but I mean, I got a question. And it really has to do with the bill, but it's also, I'm asking this from the standpoint, is it current law that you are not required to have a copy of your insurance license on you in your vehicle?
It's at a traffic stop, the current code says that the law enforcement officer will ask for two pieces of information. They'll ask for a copy of your driver's license and a copy of your automobile insurance information card. The insurance information card is technically not evidence of coverage because that paper copy of that card may be a paper copy of a policy that lapsed 10 days before that for a non-payment of premium. The traffic enforcement officer does, if he or she has access to the GEEK system, which is the electronic tracking mechanism the state set up a number of years ago that's administered through the Department of Revenue, they can pop online and verify if the information is current. And understand this policyholder might have just left his or her insurance agent's office with a paper copy of a card or electronic copy for that matter. It might not be in the DOR system yet, but all the DOR system says is, yes, this is a nationwide policy. It's valid for this particular vehicle. It does not have anything about policy expiration date or the policy number, which incidentally, at a scene of an accident, that's one of the things law enforcement's looking for in order to properly complete the accident report. They need the policy number, and oftentimes the piece of paper is missing from the glove box or from the automobile.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Mr.
Chairman.
Williams. Waived. Anyone else? Ms. Pro Tem.
I had my question answered. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Earhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 235. I'd like to we discussed that last committee meeting.
Any questions, Mr. Earhart, on 235? Mr. Williams. Mr. Benton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to call the committee's attention to House Bill 91. This bill would require state agencies, should they need to move any type of monument or historical marker, that it would be returned to a place of same prominence when the work is done.
Ms. Pro Tem.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually had a question. I wanted to comment regarding HB 235, Chairman Earhart's bill. First, I wanted to thank you for the indulgence of 24 hours to look at this. And I did meet with the optometrist and the ophthalmologist, and I do better understand it. I appreciate the author's modifications to the bill in committee. I do think that the issue is worthy of a full debate in the legislative process. It would put Georgia at the more towards the other end of allowing oral steroids to be prescribed by optometrists. 23 states prohibit it and another 10 under certain conditions, but I think it did get a lot of work during committee, and I appreciate that, and I'm comfortable with this bill going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cooper. I don't know.
What are you doing? You're going to have
to use a different microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask for House Bill 178. It's the Georgia Pain Management Clinic Act. We're trying to get rid of the pain clinics that are just in it for the profit and to either keep people addicted or give them something to sell. Thank you.
Anyone else? Set the calendar. This is for tomorrow. I believe that noise is me. Rich has already told me to go ahead and apologize. It's me. It is. Set the calendar for tomorrow. Under modified structure, HB 178. Do I hear a move? Any opposition? It's on. Under modified structure, HB 235. Do I hear a move? Any opposition? It's on. Under modified structure, HB 122. Any opposition? It's on. Under modified open, HB 160. Any opposition? Under modified open, HB 208. Any opposition? Under modified open, HB 209. Okay. We are pleased and honored to have, and I'll go ahead and apologize to you, Mr. Chairman of the Senate Rules, that we didn't have music playing for you to come marching in with. Y'all, he started playing music when he comes in to march into his, and I felt I had to stay in his office. He wouldn't even let me in his meeting. But here he is, making his omnipresence known to us. Mr. Chairman, it's nice to see you. I don't know whether you're talking about me or Wendell. We're done.